Hello and welcome to Stories of Science. Here, we look back on humanity's long journey to understand the world. The questions, the failures, and the breakthroughs that slowly changed how we see the universe and ourselves. We tell science as stories.
The explosive legacy of Alfred Nobel, how dynamite led to peace. The high-tech gadgets we have today, explosives, and even the Peace Prize are all connected to one man's name, Alfred Nobel. This father of dynamite didn't just change the course of science and technology, he also decided how history would remember him. Sounds like the start of a Hollywood blockbuster, right? Explosives, Nobel Prizes, even peace. At first glance, these seem like unrelated elements. But in fact, they are all intricately tied to this man's legacy. You might not believe it, but the inventor of dynamite, of all things, went on to create a Peace Prize. Surprised? It's an ironic twist of fate, but today, we're diving into how Nobel made that extraordinary decision. And trust me, it's not just about explosives and awards. There's a fascinating backstory full of drama, twists, and even a bit of redemption. Ready to uncover it all? Let's go! Alfred Nobel was born in Stockholm, Sweden, to what seemed like a typical family. His father was an engineer, and his mother was a smart, resilient woman. But did you know that the combination of an engineer and a teacher in his family likely sparked the scientific DNA that later made Nobel a groundbreaking inventor? Without that scientific gene, perhaps Nobel would have never created dynamite and the world wouldn't have had the Nobel Prize. Imagine that his whole future was shaped by his family background. But Nobel's education wasn't exactly the traditional route you'd expect. He didn't attend a standard school. Instead, he received personalized tutoring from private tutors and skipped the whole conventional schooling thing. He studied chemistry, physics, and languages. He wasn't just learning textbooks, he was getting a hands-on, DIY education that set him apart. At just 18 years old, he left Sweden for Paris to work in a chemistry lab. Can you picture it? A young man, diving into a world filled with chemicals and explosives. Talk about a crash course in danger. His curiosity didn't scare him away, it fueled his passion for the unknown, and maybe that's when dynamite was born in his mind. Now let's fast forward to how Nobel ended up inventing dynamite. In Paris, Nobel wasn't trying to blow things up for fun, he was thinking about how to make mining safer. Miners were working underground with explosives, facing constant life-threatening risks. Nobel's goal was clear: create a safer, more efficient explosive. After countless experiments and failures, he succeeded. And so, dynamite was born, forever changing the world. But here's the twist. The invention of dynamite didn't go as smoothly as expected. While it was used to dig mines, it quickly became a weapon of war. And that haunted Nobel deeply. You probably think of Nobel as just a scientist obsessed with inventions, right? Wrong. He actually felt guilty about what dynamite had become. Explosives were no longer just tools for construction, they were tools for destruction. So, in a bid to balance the scales, Nobel donated most of his fortune to create the Nobel Prize, a way to atone for the negative impact of his invention. Nobel's life was more than just bombs and breakthroughs. Even though he created dynamite, he struggled with complex feelings about his invention. His explosive legacy left a lasting mark on technology, but also caused a lot of ethical dilemmas. So, he decided to use his wealth to set up the Nobel Prize, rewarding those who made significant contributions to society, technology, and peace. And in doing so, Nobel didn't just change science, he transformed the future. Let's take a moment and look at dynamite, Nobel's most famous invention. You might think, isn't dynamite a powerful weapon? But that wasn't Nobel's original goal. He wasn't looking to create a tool for world destruction. He just wanted to make blasting safer. Picture this: miners, working in harsh conditions, lighting fuses and risking their lives. Every time they set off a blast, it was like a game of Russian roulette. Their safety? Well, it was like playing with fire. So Nobel stepped in, and he changed that. He created dynamite, making explosions safer, more controlled, and a lot less deadly for those who needed it. But, of course, things took an unexpected turn. You think dynamite was just a miner's best friend? Think again. As soon as dynamite hit the scene, it became a military tool. It was quickly adopted by armies around the world, turning into the ultimate weapon. Nobel must have thought, wait a minute, I created this to help miners, not to fuel wars. And that's when the reality hit him. Dynamite, the tool meant to build, became the symbol of destruction. But Nobel didn't give up on his ideals. Instead, he started thinking about how to transform the destructive power of his invention into something that could benefit humanity. That's when he devised the idea for the Nobel Prize. Picture him sitting down, writing that will, pouring out his complex emotions as he decided to donate his fortune to honor those who contributed positively to the world. The creation of the Nobel Prize would eventually change the world, sparking innovations in science, literature, and peace. Nobel's philosophy about invention was also pretty fascinating. He wasn't interested in fame or vanity. His real concern was using his inventions to improve society, even when those inventions had the potential for destructive consequences. Nobel's goal was much higher than most scientists. He wanted to find a balance between science and humanity. If he had only cared about wealth and recognition, he never would have set up the Nobel Prize. His wealth could have easily been spent on something less meaningful. But instead, he chose to use his fortune to reward those who pushed the world forward. But Nobel wasn't just about explosives and prizes. After Dynamite, he didn't just sit back and relax, he kept inventing. He wasn't done. He was a multi-talented inventor who worked on things like spark ignition devices, improvements in photography, and various chemical reaction devices. He was a true Renaissance man of science, constantly pushing boundaries. If you think dynamite is cool, wait till you hear about his other inventions. He wasn't just creating tools for destruction, he was innovating across multiple fields, from photography to chemistry. In the end, Nobel wasn't just the inventor of dynamite, he was a driving force in modern science and technology. His inventions revolutionized industries and warfare, but they also left a profound mark on history. Imagine if he'd been just another cautious chemist who avoided explosive ideas. We wouldn't have dynamite, and who knows, maybe the Nobel Prize wouldn't even exist today. His story is one full of contradictions, and that's what makes Alfred Nobel such a unique and complex figure in history. Now, here's the thing, if Nobel had never established his prize, where would we be today? We'd still have all this incredible science and tech, but maybe, just maybe, we wouldn't have the moral compass that the Nobel Prize provides. This isn't just an award, it's a guide to help humanity find its way in the world of science and progress. Every time a new Nobel laureate is announced, it's not just a win for them, it's a win for humanity. And behind it all? A man who invented dynamite but ended up creating something far greater, a legacy of peace and progress. If you're enjoying the modern world of technology, whether it's your phone, your internet connection, or the latest breakthroughs in health, thank Alfred Nobel. His legacy didn't just change the tech world, it opened the door for humanity's future. So next time you tap your phone, remember that behind all these innovations is the man who set in motion a future filled with endless possibilities. In 1895, Alfred Nobel made a decision in Paris that would change the world forever. He signed his will, dedicating the majority of his fortune to establish the Nobel Prize, awarding those who made outstanding contributions in the fields of chemistry, physics, medicine, literature, and peace. Now, you might be thinking, oh, it's because Nobel realized how dangerous his invention of dynamite was, and wanted to redeem himself. Well, you're right. This decision was his version of self-redemption. But here's the twist, did you think the Nobel Prize was just some kind of consolation prize for his conscience? Absolutely not. Nobel didn't create the Nobel Prize just to make up for the negative impact of dynamite. This was a massive act for the world, a groundbreaking move. Nobel, a chemist who made huge strides in industrial explosives, knew the devastation his invention could cause. So, instead of being stuck in the guilt of his creation, he decided to use his wealth to reward those striving for progress, not destruction. But guess what? Nobel didn't just establish a prize to make his reputation look better. Oh no, he was thinking much bigger. Nobel was keenly aware that his invention had caused a lot of destruction. Dynamite was used in wars, claiming thousands of lives and causing untold suffering. In an attempt to balance the scales, Nobel decided to create the Nobel Prize as a beacon of positive energy. He wanted the world to remember that the power of science was meant for progress, not annihilation. And here's the real kicker: Nobel even included the Peace Prize in his will. Yes, you heard that right, the inventor of dynamite, who could have easily been linked to wars, decided to create a prize for peace. This shows just how complicated and profound his thinking was. It wasn't just about rewarding technological breakthroughs, it was about encouraging people who were striving for societal progress, especially those working for peace. In other words, Nobel's idea was to balance out the negative energy of dynamite with the positive energy of the Nobel Prize. Wouldn't you say that makes him a bit of a superhero in the world of science? But there's more. Nobel didn't just want to reward scientific breakthroughs, he envisioned the prize as a tool for social progress, especially in peace building. He made it clear in his will, the prize wasn't just for science, it had to focus on the betterment of society as a whole, with an emphasis on peace. Think of it like giving science its own spiritual award. Nobel didn't want science to be used for destruction, he wanted it to foster cultural harmony and progress. In his will, he even specified that the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences would handle the Peace Prize, rewarding those who contributed to societal, cultural, and peaceful causes. Nobel was showing the world that science wasn't just about breaking down barriers, it was about making the world a better place. It's like Nobel was saying, if you bring positive energy into science and culture, don't just give them a prize, let's celebrate their soul too. At the time, the development of science and technology was a double-edged sword. It could bring about tremendous progress but also wreak havoc. Nobel, however, wanted to guide the power of science toward positive impact, inspiring more people to create a better future for the world. The Nobel Prize wasn't just about honoring individual achievements, it was about promoting global change, peace, and cultural exchange. Imagine that the father of dynamite not only reflected on his invention but also infused his will with this profound philosophy. It's almost more moving than the prize itself. Through this will, Nobel showed his deep concern for the future of humanity, as he pursued science but never lost sight of its impact on the world. So, the next time you hear of a Nobel laureate, remember, it's not just about their discovery. It could also be about Nobel's own reflection and regret that fueled this grand vision. The invention of dynamite really was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it revolutionized industries across the globe, making mining, construction, and even tunnel building more efficient. Imagine this: miners no longer had to risk their lives to blast through mountains. Construction workers could build cities faster and safer. But on the other hand, dynamite became one of the deadliest weapons of war. Yes, you heard right, Nobel's dynamite quickly made its way into the military, transforming from a tool for building to a tool for destruction. Picture this: Nobel invented dynamite to build the world, but it ended up becoming a wrecking ball used in world wars. Nobel likely never anticipated such a turn of events. You can imagine the inner turmoil he must have felt. On one hand, he wanted to change the world for the better, but on the other, his invention was now a symbol of devastation. Dynamite had become a weapon, and Nobel probably had to wrestle with this reality. He didn't want to break things, he wanted to build. And then came the creation of the Nobel Prize, which brought a completely different impact. Today, the Nobel Prize is one of the most prestigious and influential awards in the world. Nearly every groundbreaking achievement in fields like chemistry, physics, and medicine can be traced back to the Nobel Prize. From Marie Curie's win to the many scientists today pushing boundaries in various fields, the Nobel Prize is essentially the Oscar of the scientific world. But unlike the movie industry, the Nobel Prize doesn't have love triangles or plot twists, just pure intellect, innovation, and courage. It's one of the most selfless awards out there, giving recognition to those who truly change the world. Without the Nobel Prize, scientific progress might not have been as rapid. The prize has motivated countless scientists to fight for humanity's future. Whether you're researching cancer treatment, gene editing, or artificial intelligence, the recognition that comes with a Nobel Prize has been the wind in the sails of many scientific breakthroughs. The global influence of the Nobel Prize is undeniable. It's not just about recognizing individual accomplishments, it's also about pushing forward global technological progress. It's driven breakthroughs in medicine, physics, and chemistry, especially in biomedical fields. Today, modern cancer treatments, gene editing technologies, and leaps in AI all trace their roots back to the inspiration and support the Nobel Prize has provided over the years. Imagine this: without the Nobel Prize, the revolutionary progress in cancer treatment might never have reached the heights it has today. If Nobel could see the impact his prize had on advancing cancer research, he'd probably be smiling. His invention of dynamite didn't just give the world explosions, it opened the door to saving lives through scientific breakthroughs. Who would have thought that the father of dynamite would play a role in such a life-saving revolution? Do you understand how much the Nobel Prize has pushed modern technology forward? It's like a supercharger for science, giving it wings to fly. Whether it's gene editing, cancer research, or the rise of artificial intelligence, many fields owe a lot to the Nobel Prize's influence. Think about it: every time you use your phone, upload a video, or look something up online, you're benefiting from the legacy of the Nobel Prize. It paved the way for scientific progress, and those innovations are driving humanity's advancement. The Nobel Prize is like an invisible force, rewarding scientists and giving them the recognition they deserve while providing the powerful motivation needed for the progress of global technology. Right now, you're benefiting from decades of accumulated knowledge, from DNA editing to cancer breakthroughs, all thanks to the ongoing impact of the Nobel Prize. So, imagine if Nobel had never established this prize, where would we be today? Would we still be in a world of dangerous dynamite? Definitely not. The Nobel Prize has given us a glimpse into the other side of science, one of hope and progress. It hasn't just given explosions a prettier face, it has brought humanity hope and progress. Science has gone from being a destructive tool to one that saves lives and changes the world. So, remember, Nobel's prizes are not just for rewarding inventions, they are investments in global science and the future of humanity. They celebrate those who dare to innovate and break boundaries. They have propelled modern science forward, showing us the infinite possibilities of human intellect. Alfred Nobel, the man behind dynamite, had a personal life that didn't quite match up to the grandeur of his groundbreaking inventions. Surprisingly, this legendary figure, who changed the course of history, never married and led a rather solitary life. You might find it hard to believe that such a world-changing man didn't have a romantic love story. Instead, the most common connection in his life was probably the spark of chemistry flasks. His life could be summed up as dynamite and solitude side by side. But here's the twist: though he never had a romantic partner, one relationship remained constant and deeply influential throughout his life: his bond with his mother. Nobel's mother played a significant role in his life, deeply shaping his views and character. While love may not have found its way into his personal life, the closeness he shared with his mother was a crucial pillar of his emotional world. Now, you might wonder, didn't Nobel try to find his happily ever after? Well, it seems that most of his time was spent immersed in a world of explosions, chemicals, and inventions. As for chasing love, Nobel seemed to have dedicated all his time to the laboratory. Can you imagine? While he was busy experimenting with explosives, creating new chemical compounds, and pushing the boundaries of science, he probably had little time for dating. But hey, if Nobel had poured his energy into love instead of inventing, maybe we wouldn't be living in this tech-driven world today. Perhaps his single-minded focus on changing the world was what kept him going. After all, when you invent dynamite, you probably don't want too much spark in your love life. Despite his seemingly lonely existence, Nobel wasn't completely devoid of humor. Many people think of Nobel as a serious scientist, with a face that seemed permanently set in a no-laughing expression. Well, sure, his invention of dynamite does suggest that he was a man deeply focused on his work. But don't let his serious demeanor fool you. Nobel had a good sense of humor. In fact, at social gatherings, he often talked about complex topics, like quantum physics, that most people could barely wrap their heads around. Imagine the bewilderment on his friends' faces. "Nobel, you're so cool, can you explain this quantum stuff in plain English?" But you know what? Nobel seemed to enjoy the confusion. He probably found it hilarious to watch people trying to follow along with his scientific banter. It was almost like he was thinking, "You guys are really about to explode from all this info." Nobel had a way of mixing humor with his intellectual curiosity. To him, the abstract ideas of quantum physics weren't just laboratory sparks, they were a form of social chemical reaction among friends. It was his unique way of expressing his curiosity and love for the world, albeit through complex and often confusing theories. In a world of explosions and chemical experiments, Nobel also managed to maintain a balance with humor. For him, this wasn't just about cracking scientific jokes, it was his way of engaging with life and connecting with people. Whether discussing the mysteries of quantum physics or just sharing a laugh, Nobel was far more than just a serious inventor. He was a man who could lighten up even the most complicated theories with a touch of humor, making even the toughest concepts a little more relatable. Of course, Nobel's life isn't just about dynamite and quantum physics, it's also about a legacy that continues to impact the world in profound ways. Today, his name is synonymous with the most prestigious awards on the planet, the Nobel Prize. Every year, it's awarded to those who have made extraordinary contributions in chemistry, physics, medicine, literature, and peace. Now, you might think dynamite and a Peace Prize? These two things don't seem to go hand in hand. But Nobel managed to combine them in a way that was nothing short of genius. Don't forget, dynamite wasn't invented to be a weapon. Nobel's original goal was to make mining and construction safer. Before his invention, explosives were dangerous, risky, and hard to control. Nobel created a safer, more reliable form of explosive that revolutionized these industries. But here's the catch: dynamite became the darling of war. It quickly found its way into the hands of military leaders and was used as a weapon of mass destruction. Can you imagine the internal conflict Nobel must have felt? The man who invented dynamite to build the world was now facing the consequences of his creation being used for violence and destruction. This is where the Nobel Prize comes in. Nobel, recognizing the harm his invention had caused, decided to use his wealth to leave behind a legacy that would benefit humanity. In 1895, he wrote in his will that most of his fortune should be used to establish the Nobel Prize, an award that would honor those who made contributions that would improve humanity's future, especially in science and peace. Nobel hoped the prize would encourage scientific, cultural, and social progress, particularly in the field of peace. The Nobel Peace Prize was especially important to him. Imagine the irony: Nobel, the inventor of dynamite, thought deeply about how humanity could achieve peace. This wasn't just a science award, it was his way of guiding future generations toward positive progress, not just scientific achievement. But it's more than that. Nobel didn't just want to reward groundbreaking scientific discoveries. He envisioned a prize that recognized overall societal progress, especially in the realm of peace. His will specifically stated that the Peace Prize should be awarded by the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences and was intended for those who contributed to global peace. It was Nobel's way of urging humanity to not just conquer the world through science, but to make the world a better, more peaceful place. So, what does that tell us about Nobel? He wasn't just a scientist trying to make a mark on the world. He was someone who recognized the power and potential of science, but also understood its darker side. His Nobel Prize was an attempt to steer science toward progress, peace, and the betterment of society. Nobel may have invented dynamite, but he used his wealth to invest in a future of peace, culture, and innovation. Now, let's fast forward to today. The Nobel Prize has become one of the most prestigious awards in the world. It recognizes scientists, writers, and activists who push humanity forward in science, medicine, literature, and peace. Without the Nobel Prize, would we have seen the breakthroughs in cancer treatment, genetic research, and artificial intelligence that we have today? Perhaps not. It's the Nobel Prize that continues to drive innovation in countless fields and ensures that these discoveries benefit the entire world. The Nobel Prize has far outlived the man who created it. From Albert Einstein to Martin Luther King Jr., the Nobel Prize has recognized some of the greatest minds and most influential figures in history. And each of these figures, in their own way, continues to impact the world long after their Nobel-winning achievements. So, next time you pick up your phone, surf the internet, or benefit from modern technology, remember the name Nobel. Without his contributions, we might still be using rotary phones or not even have the internet. His legacy is more than just dynamite. It's about making the world better and creating a future full of possibility. Without him, who knows where we'd be today? Perhaps still stuck in the past, but thanks to Nobel's foresight, We're all living in a world powered by the wonders of modern science. The father of dynamite has given us much more than explosions, he's given us hope, progress, and a legacy that continues to inspire us all.
The people who change the world usually just think one step deeper. If this story made you see things differently, hit like, subscribe, and save it. See you in the next story.